Senator Cook, we're talking Teton Dam today. It's been 50 years this summer since the dam broke. And last year you sponsored memorial. What's it called? Let's see.
Senate Joint Memorial 101.
There it is. Yes. To basically say, hey, let's study this. We need to rebuild a dam in Eastern Idaho. Can you tell me about that effort?
Yeah, so it all started because of the curtailment issue about when not enough water. And so the junior water rights were getting turned off, and thought, you know what, we need to do something that, we can negotiate and come up with a plan, but the plan only says, okay, well, I'll give up a little bit of water, you give up a little bit of water. Nobody was happy. And yet we were still sending down 1.5 to 2 million acre feet of water down the river out into the ocean during the spring runoff because our reservoirs were full. There was no way that we could hold any more of that spring runoff back. And so it was just flowed through the state out into the ocean. Well, that's just crazy because in the fall, we're emptying our reservoirs. We're running out of water. Let's build some reservoirs and store some of that spring runoff. And as I looked at the different options that we have, and there are lots of options. We're looking at raising the dam at Jackson Lake. Okay, all that water flows into Idaho, and so that dam is 100 years old. We're looking at replacing that and raising that several feet, which would give us a little bit more water for later in the summer. We're also looking at the Minidoka Reservoir, raising that up, the American Falls Reservoir, Island Park Reservoir. We're looking at all of those options. And of course, one of those is the Teton Dam. And the interesting thing is a lot of people are saying, we don't want any more reservoirs because we lose so much water to evaporation, which is true. But the Teton Dam or the Teton Reservoir is a little bit different. It's deep. It's got those deep, high canyon walls, and so you don't get near the evaporation you do on some of these great big open, shallow reservoirs. So the Teton Dam is in a good position for us to be able to save water and use it later in the year. We can use it for the aquifer recharge, which is what we need as well. But we also need water for our surface water users, for our farmers as well. And so holding that water back in the Teton Dam would be incredible. They figured they could hold back about 288,000 acre feet of water. That's a lot of water. It's a good sized dam. And of course, there's a lot of people that are afraid about it. Here we are. We're not celebrating, but we're in memory of the dam that broke 50 years ago, and on June 5th, 1976. And so, everybody's looking at it and we're thinking about it. There's people that said, no way, we can't build it because the canyon walls are too porous. And that's true, they are porous, that lava. But they knew it was porous when they did it in 1976. And they took actions to try and shore that up. They pumped in cement or grout into those canyon walls to try and seal it up. But here is the really interesting thing that just boggles my mind. And I'm going to send you this article. So in the Bureau, they stated this is that we had the necessary information available to develop an adequate defense design. A safe dam could have been built at the site utilizing design concepts that were known at that time. We knew how to build a safe dam with porous canyon walls, but we didn't use all of our technology that was available at that time. And they look back in 1980 and they says, yeah, we could have done better. We could have built a safe dam that would have withstood if we would have used the technology. And most of all of the new standards, new ways that we built dams can point their origin back to the Teton Dam. I mean, the Teton Dam has been studied and studied over and over again. And you talk to anybody that has anything to do with building dams, they'll tell you that the standards were all go back to what we happened at the Teton Dam. But we can build it safe. I am not a builder, okay, but according to the Bureau of Reclamation, they absolutely can build it safe. They could have built it safe in 1976, and they didn't. So I think we're in a good position, and we need to look at doing that as an option.
So what would it take to actually get this ball rolling and get a dam built?
Well, we've got to get some more people talking about it. We got to educate the public, let them know that we can do it safely, and we need to make sure it is totally transparent, the whole thing from start to finish, because quite frankly, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are scared of that dam, that lived through that, and there's some legislators that I know that lived through that, and have told me stories about pulling cows out of the top of trees, helping their fathers pull cows out of the top of trees, and so they lived it. They know what it's like. As I've traveled around the state here in Southeast Idaho and talked to people about the Teton Dam, I've had people come up and tell me, yeah, my father, there's the story about the fishing boat, 2 men in the fishing boat below the dam, and one passed away and the other during the flood, and the other survived. Well, I talked to his son about it, and he's definitely not for building the dam. It's because it affected his life. It affected his father's life. So there's some real feelings, and we need to be cautious about that and not sweep them under the rug. We need to talk to them and see what we can do. But you got to get the people involved with it, and of course the money. And we went back in November of 2025. We took 20 of us back there, and we met with our Idaho federal delegation with Crapel and Risch and Fulcher and Simpson, and individually, and we talked with each of them about 30, 45 minutes about, hey, we need to look at this, whether it's the Teton Dam or something else. We need some help federally, money, to be able to build these dams, build these reservoirs. And so that we've been talking about it, and we've got plans to go back November 16th and 17th of this year. And we would love to have anybody and everybody that'd like to come back and go with us. It could be on their own dime. It's on my own dime that I go. But go back and remind them, we need to get this going. I mean, this year is a prime example. We are going to run out of water come the middle to end of July. And so this is a real threat to Idaho, this drought. And we need to save every single drop that is not legally have to flow through the rivers should be stopped, dammed up, and kept for later in the fall. So we just need to do a better job at managing our water, and I think we can get there.
Yeah, in that process, once you get people on board, I assume there'll have to be studies, and it'll take years to be done. What's the soonest timeline that we could get a dam built?
Well, it'll take 20, 30 years. But if we don't start, we wait in 5 years, it's going to still take us 20, 30 years. So we've talked about trying to speed up the process of the environmental studies, and all of that can speed those processes up. President Trump is one that's talked about trying to get rid of the red tape and get things done a little bit faster. And so we're pushing that. We're asking them, yes, let's do it. And also we've looked at what can we do to allow the Bureau of Reclamation to accept some of the studies that the state does. We've got some of our own studies. Well, why can't we accept some of those instead of the federal say, no, we have to do our own? So we're looking at all kinds of options. But yes, there'll be a lot of. You've got the people, you've got the money, you got the studies. All that needs to happen. Right now, they're kicking off this month sometime, probably the end of the month. One of the biggest Snake River Basin water studies that's ever been done in the state, and the Bureau of Reclamation is starting that up, and they're just finishing up the document saying this is what we're going to do. Once that's done, then I believe that they will begin the study. Problem is that's supposed to take 2 to 3 years. So as I look at that, okay, that's fine. We need to start now, though. We need to start the process. And there's other things we need to be doing as well, not just the Teton Dam, but everything else. We get everything going at the same time, and some will finish sooner and some will go longer. The Teton Dam is going to take a long time because it's massive, and just because of its past history, it's going to take longer. But yes, you're right. The studies have to be done, and once you got the study, then you got all the engineering and the process. The one nice thing about it, though, is the Bureau of Reclamation, they own all the ground. They still own all the ground that Teton Dam would involve. The water, the reservoir, everything is still owned there. There is no new buildings or structures that we have to worry about, legally trying to move them or do something with it. It's all back in the same situation. In fact, it is my understanding that the Bureau of Reclamation still has on the books permission from Congress to build the Teton Dam. That was never taken off the books. So things are there. We just need to see what our options are and get the ball moving. It might be really slow at first, and that's fine. We just need to get it going and moving.
Well, and I think that's what you were trying to accomplish last year with that memoriam, is getting that ball moving, getting people talking about this, and realizing, yeah, we needed it 50 years ago, and we still need it today.
Yeah. What's interesting is I've looked at this. The Teton Dam was not built for irrigation purposes. It was one of the secondary ideas. The primary idea for the Teton Dam was because of flooding. The Teton Dam continued to flood every year, and it was a costly flood. And so they saw that Teton Dam as a way to controlling the flood. And the offshoot of that was, the irrigation, possible power generation, and so all of that. But you talk about some of the old timers, and they'll tell you sooner or later the flood will come again. And that's all that area where the Walmart is, where the new temple is. All that area was where it get flooded all the time. And in fact, I think it was 1970 or something like that. They all point back to this humongous flood one year. And it was several years before, it was maybe 10 years before the Teton Dam was ever built. But it was built because for flood mitigation. That was the main primary reason of the Teton Dam.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been talking to a lot of people about the dam and reading a lot of the transcripts of interviews conducted a year after it failed, and they consistently ask the question, were you in favor of the dam initially? And most of them say yes. And then they ask, are you in favor of building it again? And they hesitate. And the ones who are in favor, they say yes, if they can do it safely.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fail.
And I mean, people are haunted. I was not here, but I remember bringing my sister up to Rick's College. I think it was maybe 2 years after the Teton Dam. And I remember still seeing some stuff because of the dam break. I thought, wow, it's been this many years and you still see stuff, some of the scars. So yeah, it was huge. And most people know about it and have a story about it. So But I think that's why I say when we do build the Teton Dam, it will have to be one of the most transparent projects ever. And the way I see that is putting up some kind of chat bot that you can ask any question, anytime, any day about anything on that dam. And everything that we do on the dam is put into AI. I mean, it is all there, every little thing, receipt, everything. And so anybody can ask about it, and they can get information back out of it. That's what I would like to see happen with it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the power generation that could be baked into it. Would that help convince some people? I know power's at a premium, right?
Yes. You know, it's one of the cheapest ways to build power generation. You know, we've got the INL with our micro and small modular reactors, and I am absolutely pro for nuclear. We need to have that. We can't keep up with everything without it, especially if you're going AI, which I am pro AI as well. You have to have nuclear here, but that's a pretty cheap way of producing power, hydropower. And so, I think it's part there, and it'll help pay for part of the dam as well if we were to get that involved. There's people that don't want the power generation option into the dam simply because you do that, then you have to bring the federal government more into it. They have more say, so you got more red tape you have to deal with. But to me, it's like, you can't just not do power generation. It just doesn't make sense, because you're always going to have water flowing out of that dam. So it'd be nice to have it turn some turbines while it leaves the dam.
Thinking about next steps, like what's the next thing that has to be done to get this ball further down the road?
Well, we'll continue to talk and get people out there. What I'd like to do is try to get some kind of coalition together and get people across the state involved with this and start looking at it. It's got to get a better view from people. We need to get it out in the open and have more people start talking about it. So that's what I'm working for, is trying to get that out. This memorial coming up in June, it will be huge. That'll be a big part of what people start talking about it again. And I think people are ready for it. I really do. There are some that will never be ready for it. It affected their lives too much, but I think we can. You've got environmentalists that still aren't real excited about it, but I went and talked with them, and a lot of them have said, we are not excited about building up a dam, especially stopping a free-flowing river. I mean, that's the ultimate sin. But they recognize Idaho is in trouble. We need to do something. And so the environmentalists have said to me, we are not totally against creating new reservoirs and new dams. Says we just need to make sure we do our due diligence and we make sure it's the smart way to go. And so I think it's going to be a lot of talking, and I want it completely open. I don't want it in a black box. I want people open and talking about it. I want all the stakeholders at the table. I want the environmentalists at the table, the farmers and ranchers, the cities, because the water is going to affect them, and they need water. I mean, you look at BYU-Idaho, how it's grown up there. It's not going to slow down. It's just going to keep growing. Rexburg is going to be huge. I don't think they built a second temple just on chance. I think somebody else knows something about Rexburg. And so I really believe that area will continue to grow, and it's going to need water. Drinking water. It's going to need some recreation, and the Teton Dam will bring a wonderful place for people to recreate. You look at Island Park with all of its economy that it brought in. Well, I believe that same thing will happen once you get the Teton Dam in. You're going to have a whole new economy there with people with cabins and places to fish and recreate. That it'll be a huge boost to that area, some of those smaller towns up there.
Yeah. Well, Senator Kevin Cook, thank you so much for chatting with me a little bit about the Teton Dam and the possibilities.
Sure.